Our devotion text, we're continuing with our Psalms, Heart and Psalms devotion that we've been doing throughout Lent. And today our text for Consider the Lilies is from Luke chapter 12, verses 13 to 34. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But Jesus said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich towards God." He said to his disciples, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens, they neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And can any of you be worrying add a single hour to your span of life? If then you are not able to do so small a thing as that, why do you worry about the rest? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothed the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? And do not keep striving for what you are to eat and what you are to drink, and do not keep worrying. For it is the nation of the world that strives after all these things, and your Father knows that you need them. Instead, strive for his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make a purse for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven where no thief comes near and no moth destroy. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." When I reflect about giving out of our abundance, as we hear in our reflection for today, there's one pivotal story that comes to my mind. One story that I can say without a doubt changed how I saw myself in connection to the world around me. Now, this story takes place when I was in high school. You know, when, like most teenagers, I pretty much saw life in black and white, right? Anna's way or no way. Sounds fairly similar to a teenager, right? Anyways, it all started when I came home from high school one day to find my mother's house truly in a state of chaos. The house had been deep cleaned. The rooms in our house had been emptied and filled with mattresses and piles of new toiletries. Honestly, it looked kind of like more like a hotel than our home that I had left that morning. I was curious, to say the least, and so I followed my nose to where my mom stood in the kitchen. There were huge pots on the stove, and my nose told me they were filled with beans. And there were rice cookers scattered all over our kitchen countertops. It was then that I learned that we were about to give up most of our house to a family who is fleeing from a Rwandan genocide. Now, I'm not going to go into details about what I learned about their circumstances, but I will tell you, they were horrible. I don't think to this day I can fully understand what they experienced. But the point was that there was a need, and we were called to help fill it. Now, we would be a temporary home while a permanent one could be located. Now, this, I admit, is a bit of an extreme example of where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And it's a bit of an extreme example of giving out of our abundance, sharing what was basic for us. And yet, it was everything for these people who were fleeing from ultimate brutality. However, it is that story that truly brought to light how much we store around us. I mean, we build actual as well as metaphorical barns around us to store those just in case items, right? When we might need those things first, without first trusting that God is a God of abundance, who calls us to find that balance. Last week, I talked about the discussion that Adrian and I had about windows. And we did end up getting those windows. I had a couple people ask me not to keep them in suspense. But we kind of are following the same track today. God isn't necessarily asking us to give away absolutely everything that we have. But God is calling us instead to look at what it means to have enough. And when we are called to give, when we feel like we have more than enough. Earlier in the same gospel that we hear, in Luke chapter 3, we hear, "If you have 2 coats, give one away," Jesus said, "and do the same for food." God isn't calling us to necessarily give away our last jacket, but to be mindful about when you have more than you could even possibly use. After a couple of weeks of having the refugees in our home, I knew that our life was going to go back to normal. I would get my room back, I would get my bathroom back, and we would be able to, once again, eat the foods that we were accustomed to. But that experience of literally giving away my home for those in need would truly change the core of who I am and how I saw my place in the world. And I still have those moments when, and probably more than I care to admit, when I find that my barn is fuller than it needs to be. But that is where God is calling us during this time, during this season, to reevaluate where our true treasure is being stored. Amen.